All right, I think we got everything set here. Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. Just talks all things TDCJ and military. Sometimes military, not a whole lot of it. As always, I'm your host, Jesse. It's been a little while since I've come with you guys. Want to give you guys some updates on the channel, its future, a couple things that have been going on. Today, we're going to talk about a conversation that I had the privilege of having with an officer who works for the mobile corrections team. Spent a little time down at Stiles doing a shakedown. And let me just say, if it was bad when I was there, I was absolutely shocked. I was completely astounded. We'll talk about that, and I'll give you guys an update on something that I talked about doing a little bit over a year ago with an individual who calls himself Bob. So let's take a second, reflect on what this weekend is actually for, actually about. I'm not going to go into it really anything at all, but it's a very memorable weekend. Everyone celebrates it in their own ways. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. This individual sent me a couple of messages, and he told me about the 16 days that he had spent down in Stiles. I'm not going to say his name. I'm not going to say where he's from. However, I did ask. I do have his permission to talk about this conversation. Him and his team went down to the Stiles, and they spent 16 days down there shaking the place down. And the things that he told me just... It's no wonder nobody wants to work there. I won't even sugarcoat it. The place is absolutely gone to hell. From the best that I can from memory, I'm going to work down our conversation. I didn't want to take notes on it. I didn't want to have anything written down. So from memory, we'll talk about what all he had to say. So the first thing that he noticed when he got there was the lack of officers. He said sometimes on nighttime shift, there'd be 10 of them in the turnout room. Back when I worked there, when I worked SEG during the day shift, we needed at least, let me think back to it, we needed at least 20 officers. All right. Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta Echo Foxtrot dorms, pods, whatever you want to call them, there were 6 of them. We needed 3 officers. A, B, and C, you could have 2. However, we always shot for 3. That's 18 right there. I need 1 in the front gate. Excuse me. I need 1 on pat down as individuals come in and out, trustees, SSIs, law library, nurse, chaplain, anybody that came in had to get patted down by this guy. So 20 was the best that we could have. If we had extra, good. Extras could be roving utilities. If we had less, I could never run D, E, and F pods with anything less than 3 officers. We would shut down A, B, and C to keep those going. To only have 10 officers, that's just tried. That's like it's time to call out the National Guard at this point. TDC would never do that because they would admit they were failures in the administration at that point. But those numbers, just dangerous. Said as they would do walk-arounds of the units. So the place was absolutely filthy. Cobwebs hanging down everywhere. Trash from a week ago shifts not getting swept up. One thing I will say, one good thing about the SSIs, they cleaned all the time. They were always pushing a broom. They were always picking up trash. They were always helping deliver kites, always trafficking and trading, always smuggling shit in, dirty, whatever, but they did clean. I guess that's not really happening anymore. He talked about the uses of force that he had there. In 16 days, 20 uses of force. 20. That's staff assaults. They had to defend themselves. So the biggest thing that he noticed while he was there, the amount of the Nigerian officers that are working there. Texas has this weird kind of program. It's not listed anywhere. I don't know how it works. But they hire a lot of the country, Africa. They hire a lot of, continent of Africa, and within that, different countries. For some reason, Nigeria seems to be one of the most frequent ones. They hire these guys, they bring them over, they get naturalized, and they work as COs. He said the majority of the shift were these individuals. Race doesn't matter when it comes to corrections officers and inmates. An inmate, a convict, they're them. Corrections officers, corrections officer. Doesn't matter if we're white, black, Hispanic, Asian, Pacific Islander, Native American, doesn't matter. We wore gray, inmate wore white. Gray against white. That's how it was. Nigerians, different. They had their own kind of culture. They would speak to each other in their native language, and you couldn't understand a word that these guys were saying. Not even the inmates could understand them. It was some kind of native dialect. I never felt safe working with these guys. They stunk. They were nasty. They had different kinds of hygiene that I don't want to say you and I, because I don't know who's watching this. I like to take a shower every day. I like to shampoo, use a little bit of soap, keep myself clean, shake. Man, these guys would come in and it's, bruh, I can't even be in the same room with you. You kind of nasty. He said that was the majority of the individuals that are working there right now. And the problem with not just it being them, the so few of them. Very disturbing to me. With corrections, you don't want to do more with less. You need your numbers there. He was saying they didn't have that. Activities still had to go on. They would do everything that they could, not while they were doing the shakedown, but they would do everything that they could to keep the activities going. Rec, feed and chow, showers, all that still had to take place. Offender movements from here and there. There's no wonder there were so many assaults. When the inmates see that there's such a lack of officers and they can't control things, that's when they're going to lash out. And from what he was talking about, it was pretty bad. All the uses of forces, they're all on camera, all of them documented, all cases written. He said the TDC is scrutinizing the uses of force so much, and they side with the inmate so much more. There's no wonder there's such a shortage. It absolutely baffles me. Talked about overtime. I've had a lot of individuals comment on here and ask me questions. What's the overtime situation like? When I worked there, overtime wasn't mandatory. You did your 4 on, your 4 off. 12-hour shifts, that was 48 hours. 40 hours went to your pay. Those 8 hours, it went to your comp time. Use it whenever you could. If you went 2 years and you hadn't used your comp time, you lost it. That's just how it was. Sometimes they would authorize overtime for pay. You could always work overtime for comp time. Pay was a very rare kind of a thing. When it was offered, a lot of guys, more so the single ones, they jump all over it. If a shift is shorthanded, they could force overtime. When I worked there, we weren't that bad. Mandatory overtime, I never got called in for mandatory overtime. Quite the opposite, I called in a lot. I was going to use my comp time. I'm told now that officers from the surrounding units, the Gist unit, the LeBlanc unit, and other surrounding county areas, they're bringing in these guys to do anywhere from 4 to 8 hours overtime. Guys that work at the 8.5 hour shift, they're coming over to do an extra 8 hours at Stiles. The ones that work the 12 hours, they're coming in to do an extra 4 hour shifts, 16 hours. Per state law, you can't work over 16 hours. I'm sure they find ways to get around that. That's how it was when I was there. That's just. So the problem with that, you got officers that are working there who are not native to the unit. They don't know anything about the unit. They don't know the culture. They're pissed off that they got to be there. They couldn't give up about what's going on with it. They come in and it's like, all right, I'm here for 4 hours. Cool. I'm here. Count time. Hey, how many of y'all in here? 40? Check, 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 check. Turn the sheet in. Paper count. Quickest way to get fired ever, doing paper counts. If they fired everybody that did that, it sounds like there would be nobody to walk the floors. So it sounds like a lot of blind eyes are getting turned to a lot of things. We talked about the amount of contraband that was found in the unit. Man, I said the biggest thing, cell phones, K-12, I don't know what it is, some kind of drug, haven't done any research on it, other forms of dope, and the Pruno, aka pooch, aka prison wine, aka liquor. Said every day they were on shift, they found that. While he was there, they walked off at least, he would only say at least, 3 female officers, all for having freaking sexual relations with them old freaky ass nasty dudes. Man, I heard about that shit going on. It never happened in front of me. I knew it had gone on when I worked there, but the amount of that goes on. They used to teach in the academy. Take one of these old freaking nasty dudes, put him in his white clothes, drop him off at a club, put a sign around his neck. I'm a convicted felon incarcerated at Texas Department of Criminal Justice. I am in prison. Would you please take me home? Man, everybody would have avoided that thing. Nobody would have turned a blind eye toward him. Put him in a unit. Put some of these individuals in there, and they flock to these nasty ass dudes. They're all over them. They snitch them out. They get fired. And sometimes they end up back in there for bringing in the contraband. That's another one. The amount of contraband that they found, pretty much all of it was being brought in by the damn officers. Officers coming in, he said, the first thing you do, you get patted down. You got to take your belt off, untuck that shirt, pull your pockets out, you get patted down. I'm doing this because we wore the long sleeves. You get patted. And they found cell phones and other shit taped to a guy's stomach. Like, come on, dude. Seriously? This is who they got trying to run the shit? Man. I'm just absolutely astounded. I'm at a loss. So the other big thing, the reason they had the use forces that they had there, those inmates weren't used to having officers who were making them mind, making them do what they're supposed to do, making them follow the policies and the procedures, writing cases. I'm not talking bullshit cases that I wrote all the damn time when I was there, but actual cases, jacking slots, aka manipulating the locking system of the doors, trafficking and trading. He said at one point they had to station themselves just on the doors because some of the cells that they would go to, none of the doors would lock. They had manipulated and jacked the slots so bad that when the solenoid engaged, it makes the noise, but the lock wouldn't actually engage. You could go by and you could roll the door of every single tier. Nobody was secure where they were supposed to be. Dude. Said for 4 days straight, that was all they did, was get shit out of the doors, try to get it to where they could lock the doors, get them to close properly. Once they were done with it, the officers who were assigned there at Stiles, it went right back to where it was. Said after the 16 days working there, everything that they did, it all went for naught. Probably about within days after they had left, the unit was back to where it was. They confiscated a lot of the contraband, destroyed all of it, wrote the cases, everything. Said the cases didn't get processed by the supervisors. Just bad. Said it was real disheartening. All the effort that they put into it. The whole team. I don't know how many of them there are, where they're from, but all the work that they put into it to just start right back over. It's kind of like, I guess, you know, the guy that paints the stripes on the road. You paint the stripe, paint it. When you get to the last one, it's time to go back to the first one and start all over again. You got the job security, but in this particular case, in with corrections, you don't see a finished product. There's not much of a reward. You spend all your time dealing with these old nasty ass dudes, these hot ass buildings, trying to get things right, and only to have it go back to where it was right after you leave. Mad shout out to you, brother. Mad shout out to every single one of y'all that are in the academy, that are working this job, this career. Man, uh, sorry, I'm rambling. But yeah, shout out to you guys. Man, that's just what it is, man. I've had quite a few individuals message me about they're out of state. They worked at some different state agencies. They're looking to hire on with TDC. Guys, please, please take anything from this channel. Don't go to work for the Stiles unit. Don't do it. I can't speak for any other units, but I can say, out of the 122 units, don't go to Stiles. You've been warned. Is there mandatory overtime? From what I'm hearing about, yes. And apparently, a lot of it. Be wary of that. And yes, because you're considered an essential employee, you can be forced and required by the state to work it. If you don't show up, if you call in, if you try to use some kind of an excuse, you can and will possibly be fired. Happens all the time. I want to close that out with, I really did enjoy the conversation that I had with the individual. The team loves what they do. They love their job. They're not jaded. They love traveling around. When I worked at TDC, mobile corrections, it didn't exist. It was being talked about, but it wasn't a thing. And from what I understand, mobile corrections officers, they hire on. They do have a home unit, more so for human resources purposes, insurance purposes, pay, all that kind of stuff. But they could get tasked to work anywhere. I'm sure there's a reasonable traveling distance, a reasonable commute, but they'll go down to these units and they'll work down in them. They'll fill in whenever the shift is shorthanded. More so, they'll do contraband interdiction. CIT's contraband interdiction team. Every unit has one. Sometimes they may be just as corrupt as the damn SSIs, inmates that are working the place. You know, yeah, garbage in, garbage out. That's what we say. Said that a lot of the mobile correction guys, it's a double-edged sword. It's a good thing because they get to travel a lot. They get to see a lot of the different parts of the state. They get to see a lot of different units. The problem is they don't get to sow any roots. They don't start off at a unit. They don't get to know the culture of the inmates that they're working with. Inmates don't get to know them. They don't really get to develop themselves. A lot of them are young. They're hotheads. They know. So let's scenario, okay? I go into a unit. I know I'm not going to be in there very long. I don't care what those guys think about me. I'm going to go in there all Billy Jack, badass, throw shit around, toss cells, and leave. This guy's never going to see me again. If I know that I'm going to be working there for the long run, dude's going to see me again. He ain't going nowhere. I'm going to do everything he can to get my ass fired if I come in acting like that. So he said a lot of the guys have that attitude. They'll come in, rile shit up, leave, and then the officers that are permanent party there, they got to come in and clean up after those guys. So it's a good and a bad thing. That's really about all I can say about this conversation. It left me very disturbed, and the new individuals, or the ones that are still walking the tiers, man, mad shout out to you guys. Stay safe. I really wish the best of y'all. Y'all are definitely some of the unsung heroes. You know, straight up. Two more things. I had somebody ask me why at TDCJ, why they don't call us guards. A guard is a very broad, generic term. The term guard means to protect something. It could mean anything. A home security system, the car alarm, the mouth guard that you wear for competitive sports, anything like that that provides some kind of a protection. Now let's start narrowing that down. You got a corrections officer, you got a jailer. Jailer is an individual who works in a county jail. I'm speaking specifically for Texas. They work inside of a county jail. County jail is run by the sheriff. These are individuals that have been arrested by the police. They get brought to this institution. They're arraigned. They go to the magistrate. They committed some kind of charge, and they're either released or they're staying in jail waiting to go to court. Individuals that end up in prison, these are individuals that have been convicted of some kind of a state felony, burglary, robbery, some kind of aggravated assault. Sometimes it involves elderly, children, typically murder is involved. These are individuals that have been convicted by the state of Texas and are placed in a penal institution, aka corrections facility, aka prison, aka penitentiary, aka farm. They're not called jailers because they don't work in a jail. They work inside of a prison. They're supervising individuals who have been convicted of some kind of state felony. So technically everybody in there, they are a convict. However, convict is a term of endearment. It's a term that they're earned. So while, yes, they are a guard being the broad, they're more defined as the corrections officer, or the CO as we call them. That's where those terms come from that. The other one, I talked about Bob at the start of the video. There's an individual who has a YouTube channel, Bad Bob's Prison Life, aka there was another one, I don't remember what it is, but you can YouTube search that there. He is a convict. He's been in prison for approximately 46 years, and he does videos from his cell with contraband cell phones, typically about the food that he eats, the living conditions that he has. He doesn't say who he is or where he is. That's for his protection. That's for the channel's protection. When he first got started, he was showing a couple of videos, and Joe Guerrero, who does an after prison show, Joe Guerrero introduced him. And Bob absolutely blew up. He had so many followers, so many subscribers, and he did the channel for the right reasons. He would use things like, for all you tough guys out there, for all you bad boys, all you criminal wannabes, you're going to get caught. You're going to be right in here with me eating the same shit that I just showed you. You're probably going to end up in here with me, and I won't even give you a soup, because I did warn you. All his videos had a warning. Don't do the things that you're thinking about doing that can get you to prison. I followed the guy's channel for quite a while. Watched all his videos. I even sent him a couple of emails. I sent him some comments here and there. Last April, he replied back to me. He was interested in us doing a face-to-face kind of a thing. Now, yes, I know the guy's convicted. Yes, I know it's a contraband cell phone. So there is a little bit of hypocrisy in with that, but it's all for good reasons. Unfortunately, last year, I came down with COVID. This would have been around April. Sometime around that time, I think he got snitched out, because I hadn't been able to talk to the guy since then. Sent a couple of emails, radio silence since then. Last month, there was a video update. He is still alive. He's doing well. He's looking forward to getting back in, looking forward to get back to posting. Because he blew up so bad, he did have quite a bit of snitches. The unit started cracking down on him. He's having to be careful with that. He did mention me specifically by name. He does remember the conversation. He's still interested in moving forward. So this Q&A thing that I teased last year about, it may still come to play. It may not. I don't know. But for those who are interested, go check out his channel. It's a lot of good stuff. Folks, I hope you guys have a good rest of your holiday weekend. Hope everyone's doing safe, taking care of each other. Hope y'all have enjoyed this video. If you got any questions or comments, leave them down below. As always, you can find me on Facebook, Jesse Carter. You can shoot me an email, ice21cold@hotmail.com. I'll try to link those down below. Take care, stay safe. See y'all in the next one. Carter's out. But before I do, happy weekend.